So at this time, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. If you'll please rise if you're able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic for which it stands, one nation.
Thank you very much. At this time, we'll take a motion to accept the agenda or make any changes as need be.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Perfect. It's been so moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well. Motion passes. So loading up. This time we'll take input from the public. There's a big long thing that I could read if anybody wants it, but I think we're good. So we're going to skip off through that and we'll go into 2.01, the first of our agenda items with potential action. And this is receipt, review, and possible approval of proposed changes to policy BCA, board organizational meeting for possible action. And at the pleasure of the board, I'm going to go ahead and also combine this with 2.02, which is receipt, review, and possible approval of proposed changes in policy BCB, board officers for possible action. This is the second time that we're seeing these two policies. And this was my request going through and visiting with a couple of board members. There was discussion about how quickly the year passes, and we kind of think that we're set, ready to go in what we're getting to, and then we're in a different position potentially. So that's why I had put this together. At the last board meeting, there were 3 that had said, I think we're good. We can just vote in that same person if we'd like with the existing policy. And there were 2 of us that had said, or maybe there were 3 of us, because I think Jeff was not here, 3 of us that said, well, let's see, let's move it forward and see where we go. So no pressure, Jeff, but this is something that you are able to potentially add any more additional input if you'd like. Before you do that, though, at the very least, if we don't pass these as changes on the red line for BCB, there's a blue area, I believe it's BCB, there's a blue area that deals specifically with removal of the president. In visiting with legal, the ability to remove the president rests with the board. However, we must include that phrase until a successor is elected. So there are 2 colors, and if you look under red line 2, the red and the blue would be that language which would require or which would allow the removal of president. The reason I indicated only president instead of clerk was because once the president's removed, the clerk would automatically fill in, but that would still allow for the ability to vote in a new president. So with that, opening it up for discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Madam Dastrup.
I move to reject all of the red in both policies.
Okay.
Is that helpful?
There is a motion to reject all red in both policies. So that would completely reject the changes under BC and BCA. And that would retain the changes in blue for BCB, which deals with the removal of the chair or president. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
I guess I'll start the discussion since I made the motion. Just the same thing I said last time. I think it's a pretty quick process to reorganize the board every January. And I think it gives everyone equal opportunity to change up. And it's not just the president and the clerk, it's any other position, and just gives different opportunities for leadership and different experience.
Thank you. Additional discussion.
I would echo that sentiment, is that I feel like a year is good, and if it's not really broken, I don't see any fix that needs to hear. One of the concerns that I had expressed to you is that a lot of us would like a chance. I know myself, I would like it someday to be board president. I'm sure there's other people too. And by having that as a 2-year period, that would limit those opportunities for each of us to have some experience at leadership. So that's why I would be opposed to it and would support this motion.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Well, I just want to say I'm comfortable with the 2-year term. I feel like it gives the person the chair to stable and learn and just grow in the role and do a better job.
Thank you. Further discussion? All righty, I'm going to just throw in my 2 cents as well. It particularly, and Teresa, I agree with what you're saying. Yes, we can keep them in there. Particularly as I've been sitting in here, it is nice to be able to know, okay, we're kind of hitting a stride with where we are on being able to get things through. Cassie doesn't have to hold my hand quite as much as she did 6 months ago. So I think that we have developed that ability as well. And CJ and I often have a very quick conversation instead of the nearly 2-hour long meetings that we were having at the beginning. So there is that approach there, and I appreciate the feedback that we've had. There is a motion on the table. It's an interesting motion in that it's a rejection. Usually it's a positive, not a negative, but I think that the motion is perfectly acceptable. So with that, all in favor of rejecting all changes in red and retaining the section in blue on BCB, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Chair votes nay as well. Passes 4-3 with the rejection of those changes. So thank you very much. We are moving forward now to 2.03, receipt, review, and possible approval of proposed changes to policy JGDAB, student welfare, student transportation, use of personally owned vehicle to transport students for possible action. This is the second time that we've seen this as well. There have been some changes made. And with that, I'll open this one up for discussion and or comment. Mr. Anderson.
I'll just chime in real quick that the changes that you see made are directly reflective of the suggestions of board member input from last meeting. So beyond that input, we've received no other from anyone else. And so that's what's there. So thank you for your feedback.
Mr. Chair, I just have one question on it. On here, it included the word class. I know with release time in Spring Creek, some of those students drive together over to that release time class. And I don't want that to cause some of those students to have to walk in the winter when they could have a ride with another student. Technically, it's still school, but they are having to kind of leave the campus to get to their release time class. So I would just suggest perhaps we take out class to not create an issue there with those students at the Spring Creek High School campus.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Is there a reason that staff would say not to remove classes? Are there classes that may take place in which folks need to transport back or forth? Is it possible that maybe an off-campus class, a GBC class or anything that might also be impacted by this?
Really good question. I mean, I would argue that the reference of class in there has nothing to do with the off-campus stuff because it's not our, it's tantamount to a release, what's it called, work priv. It's that kind of thing. Yeah. So that's not really our, it's not part of our programming, I guess. But we do have classes that our students do take at GBC. You see them walking up and down the street all the time to get there. And I don't know how much driving goes on to do that, but
Hey,
Didn't we
Jeannie?
talk last time about a class being when somebody is like going from, say, the high school to grammar to like, that's considered a class or not?
yeah. So that's what I'm saying is I think whatever we have in the policy would be in reference to anything that is part of a scheduled class that we have that we're sort of, yeah, because I feel like we have a correlation, whether it's them going over there to be an aide or them going to do their teach and learn or that sort of thing. Whereas a release time is a little different because at that point they're kind of out of our supervision for that time frame. So this would apply to when kids are under our.
And it doesn't mean they can't, they just have to have.
They would have to have a
form.
form that was, that was signed off on.
Would it be fair to say that release time would be the same as if they were going home from school?
Yes, that's how I view it. Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. That's how I would view it too.
So with this policy, we're just trying to check on when students are leaving and when they're making sure that it's approved as they leave for different classes and co-curriculars and
Yeah.
those types of things.
And I would say in the end, no matter what's in here, it all still is pending administrator approval for, how necessary it is, how safe it is. There's lots of, I guess there's mitigating factors in every situation. So like so many things, you try not to get too down in the weeds with a policy. You just set the guidelines up and let people make good decisions. So I think it's probably, I think whether, I think the reason the word class is in there is because that part of kind of the nexus of this is that we have, now that we have that teaching and training one, the kids will necessarily have to go. It's not like when I was in Wales and you just walk down the street to go do be an aide at the class. It's you are driving to another school. And so that is a scheduled class. And so we have to, we kind of had to, I think classes in there on purpose for that reason.
If that's the case, it says a student can't transport themselves in their own vehicle for that class. Would that mean the district would have to provide a
No.
vehicle for that?
That's
Just-
why this policy is being changed, is because it basically said before kids couldn't do that. We were not following, our practice wasn't matching our policy, right? So now we're dictating in here that, yes, they can do that, fill out the form, and let's make sure we're all covered. So those kids will be able to do that. They just have to fill out the form and make sure we have, I'm sure there's a lot of liability reasons behind it, and we just have to have ourselves covered.
Seems to me like that would be the major focus of this, is to make sure that we're covered on a legal aspect. and that
Correct.
We're checking, just like I do with my drivers in my business, making sure they have insurance, that they have a license, that their car is registered
You got it.
and so on.
Yep.
If we were to allow them to leave in a car that wasn't, that could be a lot of problems.
Well, and this might help if you look at, what's the policy here? The instructional arrangements release time, IEE, that we did. It says under what would be for like seminary and Spring Creek, that parents and guardians assume all responsibility for student safety, transportation, and liability when off campus during release time.
Yeah, and in this one, it references JGDAA, which is more specifically just about transportation in general. And those subsections that are referenced talk about the requirement to have insurance provided, et cetera. So it refers everything that any sort of circumstance that this would cover, and says you also need to meet all these other criteria that are already established. So same concept, just more general than the release time one specifically.
Okay, and to Susan's point, the form would allow for additional students to be put in there. So my son,
It
we
could.
could add
Mhm.
my daughter and my other son as well, or if, that I know that he's going with another student, a classmate, we can get that signed off on by the classmate's family as well.
Could.
Okay,
Mhm.
so it's possible.
It's an option.
Right, perfect. Further, go ahead, Teresa.
Mr. Chair, with my questions answered, I move to approve proposed changes to policy JGDAB.
Second.
All right, it's been seconded twice. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well. Motion passes. We'll now move on to receipt, review, and possible approval of proposed new policy, JJB, Education Records Surveys. This is for possible action. We have seen this. This is the second time as well. So, Mr. Anderson, do you want to?
It's exactly as it looked last time because no feedback was given. So I'm happy to talk about it more if you want to, but you'll see no changes.
How would the board like to proceed? We had 2 seconds on the last one, so somebody should be
Yeah.
able to at least do a first on this one.
Move to approve proposed new policy JJB, Education Records and Surveys.
Second.
All righty. There we go. We've got it moved down 2 seconds. So again, we'll go ahead and take any further discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion passes. 2.05 is receipt, review, and discussion of proposed new policy, IFD, Instructional Resources, Artificial Intelligence. This is the first time that we've seen this as the board, and this is a non-action item. Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm kind of giving a little bit of a preview of this one coming, policies soon to come, and ghosts of Christmas soon to be, that sort of thing. Well, anyway, here it is. Sorry, I got a little bit of a Charles Dickens tangent there.
August.
Okay, anyway, that's, so here it is. Gave some background info. This is a very big topic at pretty much every education conference at any level that you'll go to or hear about. I know Jeff and I came across it repeatedly when we were at the NASB conference or the NSBA conference. And anyway, so a lot of people have put work into this one. Just a quick kind of chronology. Our legal counsel, Mac Robinson, who is our IT director, and Sarah Jolly, who is our digital coach. The four of us kind of collaborated to put a first version together based off of other policies, model policies, et cetera. So when you look at the policy IFD red line that is there, everything that is not red, so all the black ink, so to speak, that represents what we originally came up with. And then since we did that version, we also convened a committee that included not our legal counsel, but the other three of us, an administrator, our curriculum directors, two teachers, a parent, and a student, kind of an ad hoc committee, so to speak. And we got together and had them review. I also sought feedback out from all 7 of you, and think some of you got back to me on that. That's great. So what you see in red on this version is all representative of, I would say, most of the feedback that we were given. Some things we made determinations not to include just based on various reasons. But you will see that, I mean, there's a lot of red, so we got a lot of feedback from people. Some of this also includes, we put a survey out to all staff and all parents of students who have email addresses on file. And up to date, we've got about 250 or so responses, which is a decent little number in about a week's time, a little less than a week. And so so again, all to say, the black was the original version. The red, just so for your reference, is representative of feedback that we've received. So we've received quite a bit. And then the other attachment to this agenda item is a quick, well, there's nothing quick about it, actually. It is a lengthy but decent overview of the summary of feedback up to this point from the survey specifically. So I guess before I stop talking and let you do your thing, I want to point out that very conveniently, when you review the survey results, especially the open-ended comments, you'll see quite an interesting variety of comments. But something that kind of comes through when you're reading those is, at least from a standpoint of someone who does work, I do a fair bit of work with AI, and I've had a lot of exposure to AI and conversations around AI education. And what I see when I see those comments is, and I don't mean this negatively, but like a lack of understanding about what AI can do and from a beneficial standpoint in our schools and in the education system. And I think there's a lot of worry and concern. And so that's important information to get. But a very kind of in a fun fashion, the document that you have there, that summary, was actually produced by AI. It's an example of what AI can do for us. It's sifted through 250 something folks' feedback, right? And instead of sitting there and reading every single one and sorting them into columns and spending hours of valuable employee time, AI quickly summarized that for us. So you can either read through the 50 slides, or you can also just see the highlight slides. And I will say, because I have gone through all of them, but having gone through them all individually and having seen the summary, they're very reflective of each other. So what I'm trying to say is, we used AI to prove a point that AI can be very helpful and beneficial when used as a great tool. And that's kind of the sentiment behind the policy, is that, when used for the right reasons in the right way, it's actually a pretty great thing. So recognizing people's concerns, and they show through in the comments, we try to address those as well. So really appreciate the feedback that we got to this point. We plan on leaving the survey open between now and next meeting to continue to give people that opportunity, and probably advertise it again just to catch people who didn't see it the first time. I feel like, oh, yeah, the other thing I really want to mention is, and I'm just going to read part of it anyway. I won't read the whole. The overview paragraph, I think, is very important of the draft policy, because what it does is it highlights something very important. The first red line thing you see there is this commitment is consistent with empowering students prepared for the future as detailed in our district's strategic plan. We have committed, and we've labeled it as our first priority, is to have our students prepared for the future. And as despite whatever worries, this is my opinion, I'm speaking CJ's opinion right now. Despite whatever worries may exist, I submit to you that there's no such thing as a future without artificial intelligence. And so if we are to prepare our students for the future, then we need to prepare them to know how to use this intelligently, ethically, effectively, efficiently, help them, be productive employees and college students and every which way they're going to go. So with that, I will stop. I feel like I gave probably enough background now and hopefully answered a lot of questions, but I'm happy to answer more.
I'd love the AI summary. Meta, Facebook has started to use that, and there's some big groups I'll look at, for example, RV stuff, and a lot of the comments will, instead of having to read through all the junk, same thing. You look on the top and say, most users say this, and so on. You'll see it a lot in Amazon reviews too. Really great tool. My only input on the policy would be on the very end of it, in distribution, number 8B, says the policy should be reviewed regularly to adapt to new challenges and opportunities presented by rapidly evolving AI technologies. I'd like to see something a little more, instead of just regularly, like every 6 months, or that like a number that makes it a regular either agenda item, or it's something we should be talking about on a regular basis. I would agree. I just like say would like to see it as a set time.
Would you like to submit 6 months as a?
I think 6 months would be.
Okay. I know you're not voting on it right now, but I mean, like,
Right.
Head nods, like, yes, is 6 months good? Or if someone wants to throw out a different number?
I'm good
Yearly.
with
At
that.
least on a yearly basis,
Okay.
you know.
At least
whatever.
Right.
6 months.
I think I probably, you're right. Regularly is a subjective term. I think I probably interpreted that to mean annually. But if we
You put
want
at least annually, so at least.
we could,
There we go.
So then we have it, or as needed, right? So at least
Yeah.
annually, or as,
Okay.
I mean, I know that's all implied,
Sure.
but maybe it'll help out a little bit if we have some.
Got the suggestion. We'll talk about it some more.
I think it helps us with, other policies in the past. It's like, wow, we should have looked at that long time, so it
Yeah.
helps you keep on track of, oh yeah, we need to look at this again. Some things maybe not quite so often, but since technology moves so fast, it's nice to look at that more often. So I like that suggestion.
Well, and AI especially doesn't move in a linear fashion. It moves exponentially. So,
Yep.
I mean, it's doubling every day kind of thing. It's going to be interesting to see what the future holds.
Josh, to clarify, do you want this being a board review, or are you okay with staff review, bringing it to the board as needed?
Well, that doesn't specify in there either, does it?
When you had said something, you had said, I think, before the board or something, and I just didn't want, if it's something the board needs to see, yes, I would just recommend that it be a staff review for staff to be able to bring back, so that we're not having an action item that says, yep, nothing's changed in AI. Pass it.
And maybe we can look at this annual, the scheduling of that to be coinciding with that national conference, because it seems like that's where a lot of that information is coming from. And that's what NEA was really all over that. So that was in April, so this, maybe something to spice up our summer meetings would be to look at what we're got rolling out for the next year in AI.
I guess maybe, not that we want to dictate with what our IT department does, but maybe if that could be something added as a reportable item, if you will, such as we get books and those types of things.
There you go.
So, so if it could just be something that's reported as we go.
Quarterly report.
Yeah, quarterly reports, that would be great.
Okay. And then obviously, if upon review, we have a suggestion for a needed change, then certainly it would come back to you in the form of a revision to a policy. So, but if in the case that we do review something and we don't feel like anything needs to change, I would at the very least come back superintendent report, say, just FYI, we reviewed the policy and we feel like it's still applicable and we don't need to change anything. So I'll let you know either way. Does that work?
Yeah.
I think for now, yeah.
Other suggested changes or comments? Susan?
I have a lot of comments, so I'll try to keep them, like everyone's like, please. One, looking at the survey results, for me, it kind of showed, I think we should have or start to try to do face-to-face meetings. Because a lot of what those people said, if someone was there, we could have answered that and had a nice discussion, I think. So I'm just throwing that out there. Just because based on some of their comments too, this is just from, I watched this video from Vox, I think it was. And it just kind of stood out to me based on some of those comments that people had made. And this lady had said, we don't want to send that message to our young people to ignore the things that scare us, because so many of them, some of them said, no AI, no. And I just thought that was kind of a good little quote from her. And then a gentleman said, we have to learn about it, learn from it, and learn how to use it. And I liked that too, because that's what we're supposed to be teaching kids.
So just a quick comment on what you said. I did find it interesting, a little paradoxical that 75% of people said they were aware of education, how AI is being used in education, but then had comments that were, in my opinion, definitely not reflective of how AI is being used in education. So I was like, aware how, like, according to what? Like, what is your source of awareness? Because it wasn't founded in what my reality is and how it's used in education. So you're right. I think there's a disconnect between an
That's why I like
understanding.
face-to-face, and I see a purpose for the surveys too. You know what I mean? So I think it's good to get both, because, yeah, I thought that as well. And I was just kind of jotting down based on those comments too. Of it'd be interesting to know how many of those people have children who have phones that have TikTok, Instagram, all of that, and you're supposed to be 13 or older. And same with a lot of the AI things, it's 13 and older. So we're not talking about like a kindergartner necessarily using that. So I don't think that was addressed, and it wasn't really the place for it, but I was just throwing that out there. Anyway.
Well, to add, Susan, so sorry, just to add to what you're saying, they're actually going to add it to your phones anyway. So it's going to be on it's already on major search engines. I believe iPhone is scheduled to add it to their next iteration of iOS. I think a lot of the Androids themselves are starting to have them. So to say, I mean, I understand your point of 13, but we're already talking, Alexa will have it. We're going to start to see it.
Like
They
we
just
use
added it
Google.
to Toyotas as far as their cars we've seen. And that will probably continue in all the major car manufacturers. So we're going to see it. Just the fact that it's 13, it's a huge wave. The genie's out of the bottle. And so at this point, yeah. Anyways, I just wanted to add to your point too as well.
Thank you. Okay, so then, question that, sorry, I didn't address earlier. I was still looking at this. The Nevada Department of Ed did some surveying in the spring into the summer on AI, and then they were supposed to have results from that. Have you heard anything about that? Because I couldn't find any more information except that they went to like Humboldt, Washoe, Clark County, and they were gathering information about AI so that Nevada would have like, I don't know if policy is the right word, but guidelines, and then direct to the rest of us. But I couldn't find
I
like,
don't think it's been
it
distributed
said
yet.
by maybe September, and I was like, oh. So I just was wondering if you've heard anything about that, or maybe
I'll
something
follow
to
up.
just keep an
Yeah.
eye out for.
Mhm.
Because I'd be interested to know what their comments are about policies regarding that. And then on the second page, just a question on A, B, C, actually it'd be D. About the AI tools and are not considered approved until final authorization has been granted. do we do this with other technology, or is it just because it's AI and it's a little different?
Sorry, which one are
So
we on?
I'm, like, it says 2 definitions, and then there's, oh, you know what? Sorry, page 3. I have my pages mixed up. 3,
Okay.
3C.
Really see. Yeah, we do have other things that are not specifically AI, like most online programs that like teachers or schools get subscriptions to, those also have to be passed through. Even individual websites have to be, they could be blocked for any number of reasons. And if they want to have access to them, there's a process for requesting
Okay,
to have access.
okay.
So, yeah, it's not
And then-
exclusive to this.
It's, okay, that's all right. I'll ask that later. And then on page 3, number 4E, the last sentence, users are encouraged to report instances of perceived bias to the technology department for further investigation. So how is that going to look?
Like, how would they
coming
do
from
that?
teachers, coming from students, like who's,
Users could be
I know they
all of
could
the
be
above.
anybody,
Mhm.
so if I think, like, whatever I put into a chat bot came up with something biased, I say, hey, look at this, and report, like, I don't understand how that's gonna work.
Yeah, like if someone was worried about, because here's the thing about AI, especially generative AI, like it's as responsive as the data that's put into it, right? And so sometimes something could come back that's just totally factually incorrect. Something could go back as offensive. Something could go back as just super biased in one direction. And if there's something that is of extreme concern to someone, you can always, yeah, you could report it if you wanted to, screenshot it, send it in. It could impact our the willingness to which we approve such a source, right? Because if it's not useful in the education environment, or it's harmful even based on the information it provides back, well, then we have an obligation to look into that and protect people from misinformation and that sort of thing. So,
Okay,
yeah, I don't see lots, well, maybe I'm naive. I don't see lots of people exercising that feature, but I think wanting to give people an avenue to which to do that if they have something they're concerned about.
okay. And then I'm going back to page 2, sorry, I had my pages mixed up. Under H, and I'm just throwing this out here, I don't know if it is, we really need to or not, but when it says user and individual student, faculty, or staff, should we include anything that says just anyone on an ECSD network? Because what if I'm a guest that comes on, I'm not really faculty or staff or student, or does that matter? Maybe it doesn't even matter.
Okay. Well,
I'm
yeah,
just-
I don't know either. I mean, you're right. There could be the occasional
That
person,
way
like a
we've covered like
volunteer or
all
a
our bases.
guest presenter or whatever. You're right. Well, I'm going to, yeah, I'll ask about it. Yep.
Okay. And then same thing with number 3. Under B, and maybe we don't, I know it's listed someplace else. And I know some people on the comments had said not specific enough in spots, so I don't know if this matters or not, but do we need to include compliance like privacy, but include FERPA, SIPA, like all of those? I know that's listed in another place, but I'm wondering if we should put it there as well, so that people know exactly like what standards we're using for privacy and security.
Okay.
And then page 4 on B, and this may be too much information, because like you've said before, sometimes it's a policy, it doesn't need to be a book for somebody to read. Sorry, I'm paraphrasing, you didn't really say that specifically.
I feel that way. Yep.
But on B, that I've seen it used using PII, personally identifiable information.
Mhm.
I don't know if we need to list anything like, or maybe this is more for like a teacher, like no names, social security numbers, your student ID number, birth date. I don't know if that needs to be included in
It's
that
just like sharing
piece.
examples of what PII refers to.
Mhm.
Okay.
even like educational records or behavioral records. Just a thought. And same on C, do we need to include the Children's Internet Protection Act? Because that's kind of the third, like, to me, like the big ones, if you will. Because that's the one that deals with, oh my gosh, I forgot, that Mac uses to purchase things. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
lost it.
we can probably list as many as we want. It does say other relevant privacy laws. So I guess.
No,
it's
and I know.
yeah.
I just thought those are the three big
They are
ones
kind of the
that I
three big
see
ones, you're right.
most of the time, but that's fine. I'm just kind of throwing stuff out there.
Yep.
And then on the last page, on 7D, do we need to mention the word restorative discipline plan? I mean, I know it talks about disciplinary action, but it's going to follow that line, isn't it, or not?
Yeah, it would follow whatever the prescribed consequences are for restorative discipline plan. Yeah.
I'm just thinking to use the same
Yeah.
verbiage that we use in other places.
Sure.
And then on, just a question on 8A, it says must distribution made by school site administration. Is every school gonna have one, like everyone's handbook or whatever, this piece of it will be the same? Or is each school gonna write their own?
Yeah, we would be part of, again, since policy doesn't include everything, there's application of policy and guidelines and that sort of thing, administrative regulations. We would provide the specific guidance that should be in those handbooks for those schools. So that has not been, that we wait on this to be done first to do that. And then, we would provide that for them, just like, there's other parts of the handbook that are straight from policy or straight
Right.
from, it's
Okay.
consistent across campuses. So we would expect this to be the same.
Okay, and then on our restorative justice plan, I don't think, and I could have missed it, do we need to add the wording AI to that? Because I know there's something on plagiarism and cheating and that, but do we need to be more specific and include AI on that, or are we covered?
I mean, I think if we were to, we'd probably have to include it in a lot of different places because it just depends on the manner in which AI is used as a violation. If it's used for defamatory purposes, if it's used for pornography, if it's used for violation of the electronics policy, if it's used for plagiarism, right? Like it could probably apply a lot of places. I think we probably don't need to be so specific about a misutilization of AI and rather the nature of the infraction, in which case it's like, AI or not AI, inappropriate use of technology is inappropriate use. AI or not AI, you cheated, it falls under that category that already exists. So I don't feel like it's necessary, but I could be convinced, I guess.
That's fine. I think that's plenty. Sorry, that was a lot, but thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Yeah, thank you for reviewing it so thoroughly.
Additional comments?
I have just a couple really quick. Let me find. Throughout the policy, lots of the different sections say users should be aware of the potential for AI basis. Users must be aware of data privacy concerns. And it kind of says that throughout. Users are expected to be aware of and comply with terms and conditions of AI tools. I would love to see something in here about training for students and staff on some of these things, because while users should be aware, most of them are probably not. And so is there a way that we could develop some kind of training that students and staff would take in order to make sure that they are aware?
So that harkens back to what I said to Susan earlier about like what would go into the student handbooks. There would be a consistent level of guidance about how this stuff is that was a great word, about how this tool is utilized. So there would be training and at least minimum expectation of communication for proper usage.
Nice question. Okay. So I just want to back up too. So I understand we don't necessarily want to be like, you in policy, you will use this specific program to teach on AI. I totally get that. How do we make sure, because again, on the survey, one of the big issues is an understanding of where AI, is it not applicable that we put in that there will be at least a class given to the specific users?
Again, I don't think that needs to be in policy. I think that with every policy, well, not with every, but with many policies, there is the application of the policy, and that is up to management to instruct people how to implement that policy.
I just don't want to see it go to the wayside, I guess.
Yeah, no, me either.
And I know that currently this is a big topic, but I know in the future, this could be,
Yeah, so what it's going to look like, just, assuming approval of the policy happens. However, the application needs to come forth, we would then reconvene, me, Mac, Sarah, et cetera. We would potentially see if there's a, kind of like teachers have a certain class at the beginning every year. They have to, about slips and falls and bloodborne pathogens and mandatory reporting and other things that we have to do every year. There would be some, whether it's an automated thing through a thing that they click through and refresh on, or whether it's a guide that is given to every teacher through our IT department, or however that ends up being developed, it would be given to everyone on an annual basis.
I think, hasn't Sarah already done a little something with AI?
She's,
Seems like I
yep.
have seen some stuff come through.
And Sarah's, by the way, way ahead on, like she's got probably 3 or 4 different versions in her mind, or probably in development on what this would look like and how to, we've seen very good like model guides from other, from websites and from other districts and that sort of thing. And so we're already doing our homework on how to, what would be good exemplar kind of guides to give to teachers on how to utilize it properly. And
okay. So can I add, so on that point to where you're looking, just not reinventing the wheel, but we definitely need to make it specific to us.
Yeah.
So do any of those include, and I just have a couple organizations that I found in my research, which was like the New York AI Policy Lab for, let's see, I can't read my handwriting, sorry. New York AI Policy Lab, and they're using that for content, and they're supposed to be sharing that. They were one of the, and then COSN, COSN, the Consortium for School Networking is supposedly, okay. And I'm just trying to see, because these are things that you see throughout, the media, and seeing if we're looking into these too. Council on the Great City Schools, it's supposedly they're doing an AI readiness checklist. So I don't know if we're already looking at these, you guys already have, and there could be better ones out there. I have no idea, other than these were in many of the articles that I read in preparation. So I just want to make sure while we're in the same context. I'm so sorry for usurping. I just wanted to make sure we had some extra. So
wrote them down.
okay. But I agree. I just want to make sure that I'm in the same boat with you. Make sure that we have training associated and we're doing it. Okay, I'm out. Sorry.
No, you're good. That was all I had to say.
Even if we have something too for, and I know Sarah will put something together, but even for parents, so you've kind of got things for students, things for parents, and things for teachers. And then I know they always have access to you personally too, because there's some great materials out there too, that putting those together too, just to have short little videos people can watch or whatever you create, Sarah, whatever it is.
I will say, after our NASB deal in Vegas, was it in Vegas where the guy came and talked about AI and where the world's going, and if these kids aren't learning these things, we're going to be left behind and all these different things. Having that information and that education completely changed my perspective on things. And so I think it's really important to have something that helps educate parents, staff, students on what AI can do and how it can be beneficial if it's used appropriately, because it is the way the world's going. So, yeah.
And I look at it, I have faith in our teachers that they're gonna, if they want to use it, they're gonna learn about it and they're gonna do it the right way. So, and if they don't want to, they won't right now. So that's how I look at it.
So I'll just continue with a couple of the other things. Now, most of these are just for, just to understand the process after the policy. Um, well, first I was going to ask the board actually, has anyone here, so I use AI for things. Have you guys used AI for anything other than just messing around with it? Or have you guys written any?
Oh, yeah.
Or doing stuff? Okay. Because I have friends that have used AI for their daily job every day, doing even as much as video and pictures too, not just words. Like most of us, I think, and I'm assuming, are thinking just words because English comes up quite a bit, or English language arts comes up quite a bit, and it makes a paper really quick. I mean, you can make a huge summary. For AI, just as in point, I took the U.S. Department of Education's paper on AI, and it's a 34-word paper, and I threw that into ChatGPT, and it gave me a 2-page summary that was very easy to read, and then I didn't have to spend hours reading the other one. So that's as effective as it is. And that's from a PDF. I didn't take it off. I didn't copy and paste off the page. I literally downloaded the product, uploaded it to ChatGPT, and said, from this PDF, make a summary. And it made a summary that was very good. So we definitely need to be, keeping an eye on this. So my question, Mr. Anderson, is detection of. Do we have things in place? Are we working towards that? Do we have nothing?
Well,
I know it's tough too, so I'm not
nothing.
gonna.
There are things that exist, but
Yeah.
the problem is they are self-admittedly inaccurate and often cause other problems, right? People being errantly accused of cheating. Yeah, AI is not effective at detecting its own usage, its own creations, if that makes sense. It hasn't evolved to that point yet. I imagine it'll get better as time goes on, but we spent a decent amount of time discussing that in our committee meeting that we had, and we all kind of agreed that we are not comfortable prescribing one or relying on any of them to do a ton of detection. And that kind of goes along with if the very last sentence of the overview says, or not the very last, I guess the last two, the district recognized that the single greatest impact on a student's ability to learn is the receipt of high quality instruction from a professional educator. The use of AI is in no way intended to replace or diminish such interactions. We do not want to rely wholly on AI for anything. We're teaching people how to use those tools, and an educator who knows their students can recognize what is their students' work and probably what is not, and just work with their students to. I just want to back it up and say, we don't want to rely on it to make decisions for us. In fact, it's prescribed in this policy that final decisions will not be made based on information from AI. So if you were to put something into AI and have it spit back out and say, this is 97% AI generated, well, then you've just used that to make the decision that this kid is cheating. And that would be its own violation of the policy. Furthermore, I know it's a big part of the comments and it's a big part of what people default to when they talk about AI. But I don't care that kids could use it to cheat. I don't, because kids can use their phone to cheat. Kids can use the person next to them to cheat. And they can use text message to cheat and cheat. Everyone can cheat however they want to try to cheat. It's not like this policy is intentionally not focused on cheating. It references plagiarism. It references academic dishonesty. And it says what happens with that. But our focus is preparing students for the future and not making sure people aren't cheating. Like that's not the focus of this policy intentionally.
Very good.
I will say one more comment, that the one note that I made on this policy when I printed it out at home, and then I forgot it at home, was that I appreciate that section that says the district recognizes that the single greatest impact on a student's ability to learn is the receipt of high quality instruction from a professional educator. I just wrote a note on there, love this, and appreciate that was added in there. That was something that really stood out to me. And yeah, I was just thinking about when Josh was talking, all the different things AI can be used for. That's not, I mean, in photography class, I remember when I was in high school forever ago, because I'm old, we had to combine 2 different images. And so we were cutting things out of magazines. It was like, the old days. We were cutting things out of magazines and trying to merge images together to create our own cool thing. And AI and different Photoshop and different apps that you can use now and software that you can use now. I mean, you can take a picture and if you want the girl's hair blowing in the wind, you type that in and it does it. Like there's so many cool things that are going to be used in all sorts of different classes, photography, you name it, that will help these kids if that's something that they're planning on going into as a career later on, that we're going to be using it. From here on out, AI is just, it's happening. So we need a policy around it.
So as far as what's in the AI tool themselves, as far as utilizing the data that's in there, so I know we're going to be able to use the tool, right? Gemini, ChatGPT, all the different ones in there. We're able to authorize those. Who is it going to be up to like, maybe proper word, maybe not proper word, monitor, if you will, the data within those tools? Does that come from the teacher themselves? So the IT is going to do it? I'm just asking procedurally. I know it's not in the actual policy.
Yeah, IT would be primarily responsible for the thorough review of the, of a program before it is approved, and to make sure it's safe and secure and data privacy, et cetera. And then should any monitoring need to be done, it's also an expert that IT would do the monitoring of that if needed.
And just confirm, this would be the same as any other program that we have. It goes through IT, it goes through the procedures of what happened. We're not asking for anything.
No different.
Last comment I have is just this, is I'm going to be very analog, just as Brooke said. When I was in school and we'd go to the library and we would go to the encyclopedia and we would find what was written on there, and then we would find what was written on, if we're doing a book report about a country, and a book that had pictures, kids pay attention, had pictures and words, that we would have to get the facts from that. And we would have to put those together when we'd write our one-page synopsis. And then we have to take our one-page synopsis and we have to make that and put that. We're not saying that's not going to happen. But ChatGPT can do that in a matter of seconds. And so we have to figure out, and it's not going away. And so we have to figure out, how do we teach these children how to do it? Because you can mess around with it and figure it out okay. But we can also teach kids how to do this amazing. And so in the future, we're not worried about research paper. We have that with us, and then it's reviewed, and then they're getting to the meat and potatoes of things and advancing things from there. So I just want to make sure that that was understood and that we had some of these questions as far as procedures go. So, but I think that I agree the policies are for guidance as we move forward, so that we know what's going on, as opposed to just sitting and waiting for this wave to come. So.
Additional comments?
Can I just say, when I wrote on tablets with stone and had to put things together, because I'm way older than you guys, I'm like.
Get your chisels out.
That's right.
Number one pencils. I'm just kidding.
Exactly. But I do want to just to comment on what Mr. Anderson said. In that little video I watched, they were talking about like AI detectors. And they said if you have a longer piece, it's a little easier to detect. And if you've made no edits on it. And then they were reminding, like, turn it in, some of those. Like, if you use one of those programs, you should always look to see, do they tell you how many times it catches AI? Because they had a whole big list of programs that don't mention that data at all. And then turn it in a few others, they do mention that. And then a reminder to me, because I kind of forgot. Like in Google Docs, if you just copy and paste, you can look at the revision history and you can see what they did and what they didn't. So there's still tools to use that are free. I mean, we have access to them. So some of those comments that said, oh, we need a program, we need this, you do have access to some of those, especially since Google has the AI in it already. So you can go back and look at those. So some of those people that commented on that, there are a few tools that we have already. And I'll shut up.
Not at all. Thank you. We want to respect our elders. Sorry. I'm just a couple of years behind you, so no worries.
You were.
Susan, afterwards, if you want to slap them.
I work with elders all day. I'm okay with that.
Oh, great.
Anything else that I can?
Me a meal.
That's right. Any other comments?
Yeah, Matt, you can get voted out in January because we didn't pass that policy. So
That's right.
I'm
We
pretty
just passed
sure
that policy.
no vote for you.
There we go. Okay. A couple of things on, right. A couple of things on that. When we send the survey back out, or when we tell folks about the survey, obviously our students aren't in session currently, so I'm hopeful that I get that there's only a week before it comes back when they are in session, but that would be nice to see at least those accounts that are appropriate, whether it's sixth grade up or eighth grade up or whatever it may be, but might be nice to see their input as well. I also want to commend the committee for putting it together, because while we had 2/3 roughly of all of the respondents on what I would consider the positive side towards the policy, fully 3/4 of them said that the policy was easy to read or at least understandable. So well done on that. I appreciate it. To Josh's point on a couple of things, yes, as far as not being able to detect whether or not they're cheating, and Mr. Anderson, you said it's not about cheating. One of the things that I regret is my handwriting. More handwritten reports on my end might have solved that, but of course that's also not as efficient. But we do see, and I've heard multiple comments in the civic clubs that I belong to, that public speaking is going away. So how cool would it be if, from an efficiency standpoint, you could say, yep, here's this report, great, now to deliver it in person? Because that could be another way of saying, fine, we don't care where you got your information. If you cheated, you cheated, but now you're at least having to think about that or read it out. So just some other thoughts on there, nothing to change in the policy. So I appreciate that. And thank you for not yet slapping me, Miss Susan. Okay, if there's nothing else, then we will move along in our agenda. 2.06 is receipt of a facilities and construction update. This is a non-action item. Mr. Stalkey.
Good evening. So we'll just start right off. Spring Creek entrance grading repave project, that's complete and turned out really
Looks
good.
nice.
It does.
Rode through it today.
Yeah, it turned out really, really good. Acha did a great job. And then Elko High Junior Building heating upgrade. The plumbing contractor is pretty much done. We're just waiting on controls, basically. So that's BCS. They're out of Reno. They're always busy. So I don't know exactly when they're going to show up to install controls, but it'll be up and going by wintertime. So Carlin fire alarm upgrade. They're getting really close to completing that. They have basically mostly a lot of demo to do, but probably by the end of the week, they should be about 90% complete, and hopefully we can start testing with the fire marshal and go from there. Food science project. We had like a RFI, request for information for the sewer portion of it. It didn't really line out perfectly. So that's kind of been on hold a little bit until we get that figured out and the footings figured out. And we kind of needed little different engineering on the footings itself for the building. So that's kind of stopped a little bit, and then, but the modulars they're moving forward and infrastructure, they're putting them together right now. And so that's moving forward.
How long a delay do you anticipate there?
Probably should be end of this week,
Okay.
next week, right? So it's just, getting the engineers to kind of figure out the plan, and we didn't have enough grade to get into the sewer where they thought it was, because they thought it was in a different location, but it wasn't. So a lot of the utilities out there where they thought they weren't there. So it's been interesting, so to say the least.
As long as you found them.
Yeah, we found them. So geothermal projects. I put on this that it might bid on September 12th, but Acha just put in a request yesterday to push it out a little bit. They just have a lot of more civil and again, utility locates. It's going to take a while for them to get from Flag View to the pool. So they'll probably push that out, I'm guessing a couple weeks, before that goes out to bid.
And Matt, why would Acha have that ability to do so? If you could just explain.
Apologies. So we did a job walk, mandatory job walk. Acha was the only contractor to show up. I
Great.
mean, so Acha and Snyder, so, it's not awarded yet, but, this is a weird project where the big chunk of it is going to be basically private work for the Boys and Girls Club. And then what they're paying for is for the line to come from Flag View down to the pool. And they're going to redo basically our mechanical room at Flag View and the wellhead. And then the bid alternate will be, if that comes in reasonable, it'll come in from the pool to Elko High School. So if that comes in, and then that'll come in front of you guys, and you guys will get to make that decision if we want to.
So how was that advertised for that geothermal project to contractors? Was it put on the online deal that we were?
Yep, it's put on everywhere we would normally put it on. It's a really different project, it being with the Boys and Girls Club and us at the same time. It's kind of, because ours was a public works project, theirs is a private project.
Mhm.
So, yeah, all the places and I think even the Boys and Girls Club reached out to a lot of people. And so, Hacha was the only contractor to show up to the mandatory job walk. So.
Thank you,
then-
Mr. Stolke.
Yep. And then Flagview Auxiliary Gym, we had 2 contractors, one from Reno, one from Salt Lake, show up to, again, another mandatory job walk, and that will bid August 22nd. So. The Owyhee project was supposed to bid today, and we had no bids. So, that's something we need to talk to the governor's office about and decide how we're going to move forward.
Was there any feedback on that from any?
So
To the
we had one
line.
contractor show up. They pulled their bid because they knew the price of the project, right? It's advertised. Everybody knows it's $64.5 million. The project came in way over that, and they didn't want to submit the bid because that becomes a public document. All their subcontractors, all their bids would be able to be shopped around. And so they decided at the last minute to pull their bid. So we have basically one contractor.
Do you know how way over? Do you know what it came in at?
We have a ballpark,
How much over?
20 million.
20 million over?
Yeah. So the issue with there is location. Cost of materials. It's, that project, got approved through the legislature basically 2 years ago. And if you've got 8% increase in inflation over the last 2 years, and then it's kind of leveled out about 4% right now. You've got that. I feel like the tribe was willing to put in a little bit more, and we haven't really seen all that come to fruition yet. So that kind of jacked up the prices on some other the materials and different things like that. So
I'll just sum up that conversation with we have to consider the direction it's going now. The process, the fact is we don't have any bidders. So we're gonna get back in touch with the folks who made the funds available and talk about the direction to head next. And I think that's all we can responsibly say right now.
yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Just jumping in on that though, too, this is something I spoke about before, is I was hoping it'd come in under, but it seems like these engineers that we're using are not accurately projecting these projects. This is what we keep running into.
Yeah, and all due respect, I think we got to be cautious, number one, about how we talk about the engineers and the contractors and subcontractors. And to Matt's point, that 64.5 million was a number that was determined before the end of the legislature. So we're talking about from the time this conversation started was over 2 years ago from today. And so it stands to reason that that number would be higher. Now, anybody's opinion on if 20 million over is
33%
is too
more,
much
though?
over?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's opinion, and I'm not saying I disagree with you, but I think there are factors like that are part of the equation, and I also want to be real cautious about just about how we discuss the people that take care of our projects, because we have a lot of projects that go on
I
all year,
understand
every
what
year.
you're saying there, but again, we're paying a lot of money for these designs.
Yep.
Millions of dollars. And for these to come back, I mean, these factors should be looked at in the first place. If we know that there's going to be a delay, that needs to be built into it. And that's something I feel like either if we're not communicating that, we need to, but if they're not hearing that, then that's something we need to address. You know, again, I'm not in those discussions, so all due respect to all these private entities that work with us, but that's something that I'm seeing a continuing theme and that needs to stop. We need to stop spending money with these guys. We have the power with that, and we need to have the next time that we go out to bid for something like that, or we have an engineer design something for us, I would like to see something in the contract that's going to say, look, if this doesn't come into bid like we've asked for, then you need to pay us some money back.
I feel, well, so it just really depends. Like, perfect example is the Spring Creek entrance regrading, right? So engineers estimate came in 300, maybe 320, 340, I'm not really sure right off the top of my head right now. And Acha bought a new paver and they decided to go after it really aggressive, and they came in at 293. And they were about $100,000 less than the other contractors. So it just really depends on the contractor, the time.
Remember, the scope of that project is much smaller than what we're
Of
discussing.
course, right?
Yeah, it
but
feels like the bigger the project is, the farther it can be off.
But I mean, we saw the same thing with the food science lab.
Right.
It just was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And again, if we go and look at the price tag of these are big checks we're writing out to.
Hear what you're saying. We're spending a lot of money on engineering.
Yeah,
which
and
you
no,
can't
we're not
get
getting the
back.
return that we're
Right,
expecting.
exactly,
So that's the focus where I'm looking at is
I got you.
I feel like we need to protect ourselves going forward. Whenever we send these out for bid, that part of the condition of that bid with the engineer needs to be that it needs to come in at that cost. And you need to make sure, or we need some, otherwise we're just throwing money away.
Yep.
And it's not on purpose or anything we can foresee, but these are professionals. We're supposed to be able to trust them. And again, when they're coming back to these amounts, I guess I'm talking in circles here, but.
Well, let me just
It's-
bridge the gap
I
here. Is
gotcha.
there something where, is there another agency that works such as that we do, the way that we do business as a district, that we could see as this just general practice that's done elsewhere? Like, I get what Jeff is saying, and I get what Mr. Anderson, I get what you guys are saying too. Like, hey, listen, let's not piss these guys off, right? And at the same time, we're a little pissed off because, we thought
Your
we had
numbers are wrong
estimates,
all
right?
the
I
time.
remember, so kind of giving an example, I remember I went to the dentist one time and they said, this is your estimate. And I said, okay, great. And they said, because you have insurance. And I said, fantastic. And so I paid that, and then I got a bill for $1,000 more. I was a little upset. And so I understand what Jeff's saying is, hey, listen, capital improvement's a big deal for us here in rural Nevada. And so is there another example that maybe in the future from maybe another agency, such as another school district or another government agency, that they do have that, involved in their contracts? I don't know. But what I do know is that since this board has changed over, we've started to try and implement new things and new ways of thinking. And so just a new way of thinking, I think, is what Jeff's trying to say. So let's find a new way of thinking. Let's see if we can somehow get something that's a decent estimate. Because I don't believe 33% off is a decent estimate. And I do know that these are, quote, unprecedented times, and I'm tired of living in unprecedented times. But there's got to be something we can work. On the other end, though, Jeff, just as devil's advocate, if they come in at a certain amount and we're close, do they get those funds back then too, right? If we come in, so this, such as the Acha project, this is what this gentleman's talking about, is that the Acha project came in under what we thought it was, so that they get the difference in that. Do you know what I mean? And so, as a professional, I'm just saying, like, do we get both sides of it, you know? But I think that there's some way that we can find a happy medium in this talk of 33% is huge, especially when you're talking millions of dollars. Hopefully we can find something. So I guess, so I don't know if that helps bridge the gap between, you know, the conversation of let's find something where maybe there's some consequence when we're not within a certain percentage of something. So just my 2 thoughts too, my 2 cents there too.
Additional comments from the board? How much, I don't know if you're going to have this, and if you don't, I understand completely. How much are we in right now to design and or other site work, prep work, anything else? What, basically at this point, what are we, how much of the 64.5 have we spent?
Shoot, I probably should have looked at that.
If I remember right, it was about $4 million on
I was going to
engineering.
quickly try and pull up. We presented it recently to the
Yeah, it should be on that.
to the panel. It's somewhere in that neighborhood. It's about
Or
4 million.
Yeah,
so 4 or
that's-
5 million.
seems about
Sort
right.
of seems
Yeah.
close,
Yeah.
at least for your question.
And that's been paid or that's,
Yeah, that's all
owed.
design fees and,
because the design fees were based on what the estimated value of the building was, correct?
no. Your design fees are just you know, they have X amount of engineers working on this project, and that's just kind of what it entails.
Okay,
So,
I hear you.
No, I think
You
you're,
know,
well, I thought I remember something to
yeah.
that extent too. Wasn't there something about the percentage of the actual, you know, based on the percentage of the cost of it was, is that what you're saying? I mean, I'm not being
Basically,
exact here.
yes.
Someone-
Whatever that's in the formula when they're
I thought
giving
that
it-
was the formula.
I mean, it could be, but I'm saying, you know, like you said, on both ends, they're not going to say, well, it's, you know, you automatically owe us this much. It's kind of what.
You don't
the
know as
work that-
extra. Now it costs 80, so you don't know as extra.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's the amount of work
Or
that
this
they've
is our
put in.
estimate, this is
Yes.
a percentage of the estimate.
Yeah,
This is
and
what
that's
you
kind
owe.
of what they do, right?
Because if they have 100 people working on it, those each earned $40,000 on this one project. We definitely need to consider being in a different scope of work. Maybe AI can help us build or design the next building. And I appreciate that they have a job. They should be paid for what their, you know, what their professionalism, what their expertise is. And I'm not trying to undercut them at all, but it did seem to me like there was a percentage of what the value of that was. And
And you're right with that.
Right now,
It's
the
a certain
value is
percentage
0.
Of the project, right?
sure, all right. So thank you for that. Next thing, and I feel like I'm being a broken record a little bit, and I feel like it could be seen that I'm pushing for one thing, but a design bid build CMAR project could have avoided this, because my understanding of the design bid build is we don't pay any money until we award the bid. They have to design the building. They design the building for what they feel they can do it as, and then it's bid out and built. So I think that may be something that we need to look at and set a dollar amount or a square footage amount or something and say, for all projects of this valuation, whatever that is, dollar or size, this is kind of how we're going to approach that. I understand the risk of taking somebody else's design and how that's going to fit into what our needs are, but we can also write those scopes, my understanding is, fairly clear, and staff can always come back and say, this is the lowest bid, but we've asked them to put in glass windows and they're putting in cellophane. Reject this bid respectfully, or something to that effect. And I get that's a huge, you know, hyperbole there, but my point being that that may save some of those design discrepancies that we've found. So just throwing that out there again, that it has worked well before, particularly with government buildings. And I really think we need to consider how we're doing a design bid build or CMAR, or sorry, how we're doing projects moving forward and should seriously consider design bid build or CMAR. So Matt, thank you for standing up here. Thank you for taking the slings and arrows that were going your way, and thank you for working with the the engineers, with the tribe, with the folks that came in. And I know that this was not something that you were like, hey, let's tank this. So I appreciate everything that you and Stephen and everybody else that's associated with the project have done to try to get it across the finish line. We're obviously not here, but I appreciate very much what you've done. So thank you.
Welcome.
Anything else? Go ahead.
While you were talking, Cassie Stolke texted, it's closer to 3 million than it is 4 million.
Okay, thank you, Cassie.
I just have a question. So it came in 20 million over. From here on out, I know you said we have to go talk to the people who gave us the money, but let's say we don't get any more money. We're either not going to be able to do part of the project, or we're gonna have to redesign what we're doing. And so does redesign come in with that 3 million, or do we end up having to pay them more money to redesign?
That's a question we'll have with, with the engineering team. So, I mean, we can probably do a value engineering and look at different products that could be cheaper that, in our spec sheet that we can sub out and maybe come from
Right.
there. But
'Cause
I mean, at the end of the day, I would not want to lower our standards as a school district to provide a substandard building just to get it built, right? So, we're lowering our standards on a building, and then, 10 years from now, the school district is having to redo an HVAC system or something like that, right? So lowering our standards wouldn't be something would like to do, but, maybe fit and finishes, sure. We could look at that and decide on that. And
So then I guess my other comment would be, is there a way to, with these design companies, say, list a percentage in the contract with them that says, if it comes in a certain percentage over and redesign has to happen because it's not within our budget, that redesign happens without any extra money. Like, you guys provide the redesign, whatever it takes to redesign it to get it back in budget without having to
And,
pay more money.
I mean, on this project, to be honest with you, you're not going to redesign $20 million out of a project.
No.
I
I know,
The
but
only
what I
way-
guess what I'm saying is if they know that they have to redesign and they have to go back and do all this extra work without any extra pay, maybe their designs would come in closer to what bids would be. I don't know, like just something in the contract with them that would make sure that they're closer to where they need to be. Because that's way far off.
Another thought too, and this is just a layman speaking, I'm not an engineer or anything, but we're not the only people building schools. There's got to be designs out there already that we can use. I mean, I understand that there's site-specific stuff like what we're dealing with the footings and stuff
Yeah.
with Spring Creek, but I mean, isn't there something we can purchase or in the future? We can look at other buildings from other districts perhaps in those ways. But speaking to this one too, though, I said this when we were up in Hawaii, that I saw a lot of things in the design that were going to cost extra money. The way they're offset angles, so you got a 15 to 20 degree angle on these buildings in the roof, and you've got the external buildings, so it's dual systems and things like that all add money. And I was at the time was like, I wonder why we're doing, or the parking lot that stretches all the way into the back. Those are things I know that could be cleaned up right off the bat that would save a lot of money. But again, I'm not, I don't know, just thinking outside the box again. Like that. That's all I had to say on the matter.
I mean, this building was very similar to Liberty Peak, right? I mean, design wise, internals and all that stuff was very, very similar, right? So.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. There was a second document in there. Sorry, go ahead. Okay, there's a second document in there with the TCUs. Did you want to touch on that at all?
Yeah, so we're doing training. this week with Southside, Spring Creek High, and Spring Creek Middle. Southside's complete. Spring Creek High is, I think, just wrapped up, and then Spring Creek Middle should be done by the end of the week.
Thank you. Please remind me, TCU, what does that stand for?
That
What
is-
training is it?
It's all for like the communication of the building, right? So
Thank
all
you.
the bells, all the alerts, and
Perfect.
Yep.
Telecommunications.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else? You're off the hot seat. Thanks again, Matt.
perfect.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
guys.
Thank you.
All righty. Sorry, I was looking through old agendas, looking at the cost of the Waihe when it was presented back to June. But Mr. Smith, come on up. We're at 2.07, receipt of a central office department update from our school improvement department.
All right, thank you. Charles, can you get the computer screen up there for me? Thank you. And I have a little presentation, some information to share with you. Find the right button here, sorry. Yes. Yes, believe so. The other one was the 4-day one, but you've got that one, right? Yes, I believe it is. So the first thing that I have to share with you is just some information related to the board goals that you all set. I can't remember exactly when that was done, but just to refresh everyone's memory, there's two different goals there. The first one on the top is related to second and third graders and projected proficiency using the MAP assessment. And so it was kind of a long-term 3-year goal set there for improvement over the course of 3 school years. We have some information that's come in. I highlighted the section related to the school year that we just finished up, the 23-24, where the goal was to increase that projected proficiency from 32 to 35. The text in green there shows you that in the spring of 2024, so at the end of last school year, the projected proficiency report from MAP showed 34.6. So that's a 2.6% gain there. Didn't quite reach the 3% of the goal, but there was an improvement in the projection from our baseline, which was 32%. And then in red, I put in there what the actual SBAC results were, because third grade is where students start taking that test. It doesn't include second and third graders. The actual result is just the third grade students, but they came in at 33.5. So shows you that projection was within a percentage point. And then we have similar information down there for goal number 2, which is for 4th through 7th graders and more related to mathematics. The baseline was 24.3 with the intention to grow to 27.3. Our actual projected proficiency was 26.1. So that's a 1.8% growth. Again, not the 3% that we were hoping to see, but there is improvement there. And then again in the red, showing just how close the actual results on the SBAC assessment were. This one was able to include all of those grade bands, 4th through 7th grade. And you can see there the projection from the MAP test and then the actual percentage from the SBAC test were within 0.6 of a point to each other. Questions on the info or the data shown in that slide? Okay, so the next few slides that I have are just some more information related to state assessments, SBAC and ACT. And this is just results from spring of 2024. So you'll notice if I go back, or if we go back to that previous slide, there was some proficiency numbers there that don't match exactly this 32.9. And that's because you got to remember that those numbers on the previous slide were for third grade only, or fourth through seventh grade students. The numbers on this slide represent all of our students, third through eighth grade, in the area of English language arts who took that assessment. And the total percent proficient there was 32.9. The next slide is the same assessment, ELA SBAC in 2024, just broken out by grade level. So you'll notice that third grade bar there, the light blue one, is 33.5, which matches the number on the first slide because that was the third grade number. And then the rest of them are each individual grade's percent proficient on ELA SBAC 2024. And then the district average as well at the end. It's a very similar slide, except this time switching over from language arts to mathematics. Again, all third through eighth grade students who took the SBAC math assessment listed there with proficiency percentage of 26.9. Similar slide to the previous one with the grade level bands, except again, this one's math, SBAC 2024. Each grade level percent proficient shown there in the district average. So this is all just data from this last school year. I don't have anything in here from comparison year over year. I do have that data and I can certainly share it with you, but for this purposes, I just stuck with one assessment just to not kind of muddy the waters. I don't want to try to say numbers off the top of my head because I'll transpose something and get it wrong. I can say that really, I mean, there's some variability from year to year, but to be quite honest, for the most part, it's minimal change up or down. It is relatively stagnant or potentially, slightly changed one way or the other over the last 2 or 3 years. I don't have any of that in here, just to be clear again to anybody who might be listening in the public. What's shown on the screen there is just from this year. But data from year over year could be provided to you if you wanted to see that. Sure. Sure. Yep. Sure. And we have that information because we've, been tracking this and keeping track of it. Again, I just wanted to kind of not confuse, put too much in there where it gets conflated, but yeah, I can certainly do that.
I have a couple questions about different things. Should I wait till the end as far as the different topics? How many more slides you got?
Let's see.
More?
I think maybe 2 more.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
Can we do that? Does
Yeah,
that works?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, please.
Yeah. So the difference here with this one is this is ACT results. So everything that, the last several slides was related to SBAC, which is third through eighth grade students. ACTs are students in high school. For the most part, it's our juniors who take this assessment. We have a few seniors who take it again or want to take it again or something like that. But for the most part, it's juniors. What this shows you is the number of, total students who were tested somewhere. Again, this is just last spring, just 2024, somewhere around that 700, 710 students total taking the assessment. And then Nevada sets benchmarks in math and English language arts. And so you can see those 2 numbers there. It's 20 in math and 17 in language arts. And then there's the percentage of our number and percentage of our students who fell either below that or above it, with math at an 11% proficiency rate above that benchmark, language arts 37%. And then the last column on the right is just an average of the scale, the scale score, which is a 1 to 36 scale for all of the sections of the test with the exception of writing. You can see there's a note that the writing range is only 2 to 12. So that's why that average number there is a little bit different. The scale's different for that one portion of the assessment for some reason that I'm not fully aware of, to be honest with you. But so that's what that information shows. And I think that's the end of it. So just one more, Josh. I said a few
Okay.
more. It was
It's-
just one.
You're fine. You're fine. I think I have three questions. One, ACT, I'm having a hard time looking it up. So what's the top score for ACT?
36.
36. Okay. That's what I thought. All right. And then the other thing was, so those are scores from last year. Sorry, last school.
Last
year.
spring. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, last
spring.
school year.
Yeah. So are we, what kind of, I don't know if you can answer this or not. What kind of pivot are we doing? Are we doing any pivot based on these? Are we
Yeah.
doing, what kind of things are we doing? And if it's like 20 things, pick out your top
Sure.
whatever. And if it's easier to do it as we're doing for both English and math, that's totally great. And then at the end of that, I appreciate that you're doing work. Sorry, it's a hard question, but.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I think you're right. To answer your question about what we're doing for that, yeah, the list is long, right? I mean, all of the things that we do at our schools and all the things that our teachers and our site administrators and everybody in between does, you could say is tied directly to increase student achievement one way or another, whether that's test scores achievement or, an achievement in another realm. I would tie back, I guess, to answer your question without too much incoherent rambling, would refer back to our strategic plan and the initiatives and the outcomes that we have listed through there in our 4 pillars, because there's a lot of things in there that are directly tied to this, specifically in the first pillar and the second one related to numeracy and literacy instruction. We just had some time, and I think probably I might be stealing Mr. Anderson's thunder a little bit here. He's going to talk about what we did today in our convocation. We had essentially, unless they had some extenuating circumstances, every single math teacher in our school district were in what was in one room today at Elko High School. And we had what I think was a very good conversation about making some changes with what we're doing in the world of mathematics related to our work with the learner-centered framework that I've talked with you guys about a few times. So we've made some, it's not super fast progress, but we're really starting to put things in place where the instruction, the way that we're tracking a student's progress, all of those sort of things we're going to start doing some different things in math specifically.
I do want to add to my comment too, as well, as that I understand that we've inherited this and
Sure.
that we're not going to turn it around as quickly as most. It's more of a steamship than it is anything.
Good point.
And so I just want to make sure that but that the general public knows I understand that this is time, but
Sure.
we definitely need to try and get it. I know that the urgency in trying to get this turnaround too as well. So, and yeah, definitely during the pandemic stuff, and we can only go for so long before that becomes a distant fade, but.
Sure.
So I appreciate this, but yeah, I definitely think, and I'm sure there's probably a few on the board that'll probably piggyback on this, that we definitely need to get this turned around as soon as possible. I do want to make a plug, though, in my own opinion. I know this is your time, and I apologize, but that this is one reason why we probably do need to seriously look at the impact of cell phones on our children and what they do for them and the distraction that they do within their brain. And that, if we're going to refocus our efforts, refocusing them without that might be something. So I'm just going to make a plug just because. But I appreciate it all the time.
Sure. Did I get to all your questions? I might
You
have
did.
forgotten.
No, you did.
Okay.
You did. I mean, in general, I just was trying to, the thing is I don't think that anyone's sitting back and saying, oh, well, this is what we got, so we're just going to keep going. But I also just want to make sure the general public knows that there are people doing things that we are taking it seriously, because there are people in this community that think that we don't take this seriously. And I know that you guys do, so I was just trying to give you some time to kind of show that you guys do take this serious, that the future of our children is serious, and that we are doing things. It's not the same as taking care of your household. There are many households that we're taking care of, and things need to be precise, and that they need to be consideration needs to be taken. So I just wanted to make sure you had time for that. Maybe someone else has a better question then. But I digress.
Thank you.
Could I ask, could we get that presentation?
Oh,
just so
yeah,
I can
absolutely.
Look at it
Yeah.
some more?
Yep.
And
absolutely.
then my second question is there anything you need from us as a board to help? Or you can think about
Yes.
it and at the
Yeah,
next.
that's a good question.
I mean,
Yeah,
is there something we're not doing that you would appreciate us doing, or?
It's okay if I
So
answer
it's-
that. I mean, you can certainly chime in too. Yeah, so
Shoebox of 50?
I really appreciate Josh's analogy of a steamship. I actually use the same exact, I said a barge. I didn't say steamship, but I literally 3 hours ago and talking to someone else about the same stuff. I said the exact same thing. So what I want to challenge, I don't have anything additional that I think I need you to do. Other than speak kindly about our educators, because they're trying real hard, which you already do. I know you speak kindly about them. But what I want to caution you against, and I don't say this for my own self-preservation's sake, because honestly, you do what you got to do. What I want to caution you against is an overreaction of any type to any data. So with you have made some pretty significant commitments that, in my opinion, have not been consistently made in a long time. And those are found within our strategic plan under Pillar 2 of teaching and learning excellence. There is a pervasive need for curriculum updates. We have a teacher in one of our star AI teachers who was in our committee talked about his social studies textbook from 2002. Once you think of how many presidents have been elected and gone from the Oval Office since 2002. Okay, so that's just one quick example, right? So you've made a commitment as a board to have regular refresh schedules, as I believe the way we had it in our strategic plan, right? We got to stick with that, right? All the things within our strategic plan and within the goals that you've committed to. So that's just one example, and we have others. You can't be scared and try to do a course correction when the course hasn't even when we haven't even really left the port. And the reality is to keep using the boat analogy, like it's a long trip. And without getting too crazy into the data, if you look through there are some obvious pockets of you can trace back to, oh, those were kids who were these kids were in second grade when school shut down for 2 years. These kids were in third grade. Like, you can see those pockets. You can see progress from the board. We made board goals. You made board goals. I was there. But you made board goals very strategically about the grade levels that we made about, because we believe that by making those impacts and those changes, as those grade levels progress through, things continue to progress and get better. So I think that's my answer to your question, is what can we do? And my response is to stay the course in regards to the plan that was put in place. And I'm really excited about the work we're doing with math. A lot of good feedback from teachers today about what we're doing there. There's some resistance too, that's to be expected. But the other main thing that is within our strategic plan that I think is extremely relevant to this conversation is the need for consistency across our district. We have a district of pockets right now, people who've been left to their own devices, and I don't mean that negatively from their standpoint. People have been left to figure it out and fend for themselves. And so you have pockets of success, you have pockets of what's going on here, you have pockets of confusion, right? And so the coalescing and the congregating of everybody today, people there were like, this is awesome. This is great that we're doing this, that we're getting this guidance, that we're going to be on a consistent pace, right? Like, there's still things to figure out to make it work great, and that's going to be part of the process, right? But too often in smaller instances in our lives, with like a small business or within your family, like Josh said, at your own house, we have a lot of houses. The bigger the scope is, the tougher it is to make those changes. And so we are dedicated to it, and we're focused on it, and we're making every decision based on these things that we came up with in our strategic plan and your goals. But it's going to take some time, and so we want to keep pushing forward. So I want you to stay the course. That's my request.
I just want to say a few things too. I want to just thank the teachers that I've seen just in my kids that have like recognized that, or not recognized, but recognize that pushing these kids, that they can do it. And as a board, we just passed policy saying that we're going to have these kids in the least restrictive environment. And what that's done for my son, he's improved in math scores on his MAP tests. I think it was more than 99% of his peers. Just taking him out of special education math and putting him in a inclusion class. And so I'm really interested to see, now that the district's moving that direction, how that might affect these numbers. I think that as a district, we're doing lots of things that hopefully will have a positive impact on these things. And then I have another child that goes to Flagview, and this year I'm dropping him off at Adobe because he is in accelerated math. He's going to be going up to Adobe to take math at the middle school with middle schoolers, and then they're busing him back to the school. And so I see where the district is doing what they can to push these kids and to give them what they need and to help them grow, you know, that growth mindset, help them grow as much as they can. And so, and then also when I came in, was it called the school improvement plan? And just seeing all those principals coming together and talking over things like this and figuring out, hey, you know, this is where we want to improve and these are the things that we're going to implement. And these are the, you know, this is what we hope to see in a year. And if you keep doing those, I'm sure, you know, these principals will come back and say, XYZ worked really great in our school, and then they can share that with other schools that, like he was saying, there's pockets that maybe some of them have been left to themselves to try and figure it out. And so I think getting together and doing things like that can really help. But anyway, I've seen a lot of good things happening in the district with teachers and with district leadership that hopefully, like you said, it's going to be a slow gain, but I think from what I've seen lots of good things.
Yeah, there's lots of positives. That's for sure. Yeah. And I think to CJ's point, yeah, don't get disheartened too quickly. Don't put too much stock in any one single point of data because you need time. You need multiple points to make an informed decision. And so, yeah, but I'll keep providing it for you, and then we can make decisions from there.
I think it's also important to note that our student success is not just one test. That's so important to recognize that, you know, they're succeeding in so many ways. We have children who don't take the SBAC tests who are fantastic students, and so that brings our scores down, and that's okay. But they are succeeding in other ways, and I think it's great that we recognize our teachers, our staff, everyone who is doing a great job to help our students succeed, and our kids aren't a data point. There's a lot of success.
Good point. Agreed. That's all I have.
Additional comments? To Teresa's point, yes, absolutely. Our kids are not data points. Our teachers are not a single test or a single data point as well. I think it's fair to say, yes, this is disappointing to see, but that doesn't mean that any one with the district is necessarily a disappointment. So we wanted to make sure that we can continue to support that. So Susan, that was the first question I had, was what can we do to help? So thank you. I appreciate that. And Ray, sorry, I know you just sat down, but CJ, maybe you can answer this. 2 questions. On the ACT, we were able to see that the state wants us at 20 on, I think, math, and we were at 16. So we can see we got a pretty big gap there. But on the other ones, the SBAC, is there an indication of how close we are to proficient? I mean, it's a yes, no, either you're proficient or you're not. But if 90% is proficient and we've got 88%, I mean, and our students are, you know, a good portion of them are 88%, are we close, or is it just a yes, no?
So it's all broken down by what are called cut scores. And so every range of minimal to moderately to proficient, or I can't remember what all 4 titles are. Each of those have a range. And so, yeah, we often refer to, I hate talking about it this way, but we call them bubble kids, kids that are very close either direction. And,
Right.
and you do, there is sometimes it's really great because you have, you're like, there's so many right here that we, you know, in this one teacher's class or in this one grade level at a school that we can focus on those and just help them a little bit extra. And sometimes, you know, even though they may be over, they might be just over, and even though it looks good on a chart, you're like, man, these kids are one question away from not being proficient, right? And so that data can sometimes totally just give you a false sense of security, or it could give you a false sense of doom, because really they could be right there. I won't get too far into it because I don't want to embarrass anyone, but I was looking at someone close to me, their score recently, and I was like, man, that was so close. And what I didn't do was make that person feel like they'd failed in any way. I'm really proud of everything that person does in school. And so, but that's how it's broken down. The state doesn't say you were this many people this close to being proficient. Like you just, that's where it starts to trickle down to the professionals that work closely with these kids. The school will get their raw data for all those kids. That principal gives the raw data to their teacher on the kids that they have in their classroom that year. They'll go back. There's a very thorough process for this, and I'm sure Michelle's been through it 100 times. You look at every single kid in your classroom, and this kid is this close, and this kid is this far, and you do groupings based on different components of that test, and how do we help those kids who are similarly struggling in one area, right? So I don't even remember your original question, but yeah, you can tell who's really close. But there isn't like a percentage point that says 12% of your kids are
Really close.
questions away. Like you just do that by knowing the cut score ends here, and the good one starts here, and the bad one, so to speak, starts here, and you just start to look through that as a teacher and work with your kids accordingly.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to add, Charles, can you bring that computer screen back up? I think, if I'm going off of my memory here, so this could be trouble, but I believe, yeah, it is. So it's not going to show on this one because this is a result at the district level, but the ones that I share with principals that are more school levels, there's very similar information, but there is there's the scaled score that CJ mentioned, where the cutoff is for each level is listed in there, and then when you start looking at it at an individual student level or a classroom level, you're able to see that individual student's scale score. So you're able to do exactly what he just talked about. Recognize this is a bubble kid, or instead of somebody who's right on the cusp of transitioning into whatever the next level is, whether it's from a level 1 to a level 2 or 2 to 3 or 3 to 4. So I was hoping this one had it on there, but I guess it doesn't. And the reason that it doesn't is that scale changes from third grade to fourth grade to fifth grade. So it's a little bit different. So yeah.
Well, this is, somewhat helpful as well. So, okay. Thank you.
The other element I'd add to the equation is SBAC is somewhat linear in this way, whereas NWEA MAP, one of the reasons school administrators and teachers prefer that one, which is why we directed our board goals towards it, because we feel like it's more formative and we can use it more frequently, is MAP produces just an endless amount of awesome reports that help you kind of sift through that. I have a good feeling a lot of that's done through AI, and it really provides very useful information that helps teachers identify those needs pretty quickly. And so we do love the NWA MAP reports because they help us do a better job there.
Great. Second question, other districts. Do we know where we are as far as other districts? Are we an outlier, or are other districts having similar results specifically on the ACT side of things?
Sure. So we don't know, I don't have any information related to other districts for 23-24 school year. That hasn't been released yet. Usually about middle of September, usually September 15th, actually right on there is usually the go live date for the Nevada report card. I haven't heard it exactly when that is, but at that point we'll be able to look at the most recent 23-24 data for all the other districts in the state. Past years, I can say that, from looking at that, we're pretty comparable. Obviously, a little bit of variability because you've got different, our districts in our state, as you guys are all well aware, are so variable, and, we've got the Clarks and the Washos, and we've got the Esmeraldas with a couple hundred kids and us in between. So, it's always a little bit tough making direct comparisons to very different scenarios, but, for the ones that we can make connections to, or, comparisons to, pretty comparable results. But that's all based on 2 school years ago. The stuff from this year's to be released in the next couple weeks.
Thank you. Appreciate your time, Ray. All righty.
Ray,
Yes.
could I ask one more question? Sorry. I just.
We just know you're getting your steps in.
I just thought about
Get
it.
your steps.
Are Are they called SCELs, the social, emotional?
The climate surveys, yeah.
Yeah, are those, do you have
NVSC,
results from those?
We have some, yeah.
Sometime will we get to see those?
Yeah, I certainly can put something together for you, yeah.
And I was just, all of the testing stuff just reminded me of
Sure.
those too.
Yep.
Be interesting to
I'll go
know
write
where
it
we
down
are,
I'm
if
allowed
that's
to sit down,
getting
yeah.
better or not, so,
You get to look forward to another presentation.
Yeah, good stuff.
Can I
thank you.
just throw out a thought? Have we ever considered in elementary a little bit earlier, rather than just when they go to middle school, having a math teacher? That, you know, our kids go to a special, they go to, you know, library, or they go to, you know, music. What if our kids move to a math teacher? You know, because what if we have math specialists that kids move from their regular classroom, and that teacher just, they love math, they teach math all day. I know some states do that earlier, like down to third and fourth
Mhm.
grade. Have we ever looked at
So
that?
are you asking like in place of going to?
Well, not in
Library,
place
or-
of specials, but I'm just saying, like, instead of, you know, I mean, elementary teachers have so much content that they're covering. You know, you get to the middle school, and the middle school teacher, I teach math. I teach math all day long, you know, or I teach whatever. Have we ever considered doing a little bit more of that, moving our elementary students to, you know, teachers that their specialty is math. They love elementary math, and that's what they want to do all day. And, you know, Miss So-and-so's class does English language arts here, and then they move to, you know, this teacher's class, and that's where they do math. And
So instead of just
transitioning
having,
classes
instead of having elementary kids
just with one teacher all the
just
time.
do one teacher all the time, have them have
And-
specialty teachers that only teach that content.
Yeah.
I guess at Flagview, it doesn't happen this way in Spring Creek, or I guess anywhere else. But Flagview and Elko, you know, when kids get to fifth grade, they're grouped. They have a math and a science teacher, and they have an English and a social studies teacher. It starts to get a little more specialized.
Yeah.
So you're saying just
I'm just
Start
wondering if
doing that
that's,
earlier,
if that's an
potentially.
idea for, you know, improving our math, because not everybody loves math, you know, and not everybody loves to teach math.
right.
But there are people who are ultra passionate about it
Yeah.
and be like, I would love to teach elementary math all day and let somebody else teach English language arts, let somebody else teach the science, whatever. And just, I'm not saying to do this, I'm
It-
saying let's, you know,
Sure.
is it an idea that
I
could
would
work?
not say I've thought of the idea. It would be a massive overhaul to the way we do elementary school. Sure, it would give people anxiety to talk about it. It's definitely, I mean, I don't think it's a terrible idea. It would just be a very different way of doing elementary school, be a big shift. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, my response was going to be very similar to what you just said, CJ, is that, yeah, I don't know of any, I guess, formal or, you know, serious conversations that have taken place regarding that. And again, yeah, definitely would be lots of logistical changes and a big overhaul to what we currently do. One thought though that came to mind now that I understand what you're asking a little bit better, you know, again, nothing that I'm aware of, and maybe, you know, Candace, I think she's agreeing with me that nothing formal, but kind of in what you're describing, there's maybe a smaller scale version of that takes place at our schools. In that, you know, most all of our schools have some intervention time built in. And I know from my time, both as a site principal and then even back when I was a teacher, you know, we would make determinations of what content we'd be covering during that intervention time based on our specialty, I'll call it, you know. I was a teacher that really liked to teach math and science, and not so much the language arts side of it. So when, you know, given the opportunity, and there was 5 of us teachers at Mountain View, and, you know, there was a couple of slots where we were going to do some math intervention and a couple of slots where we were going to do language arts, I would lean myself towards that math one because that's where I wanted to be. So on a smaller scale, maybe there's some versions of something like that taking place, but yeah, not on a full-time basis.
Yeah, just throwing that out as an idea of some kind of drastic to do to maybe see what would happen with our math scores.
Yeah, I think
Well-
it's worth looking into.
Maybe it's terrible. Maybe it's a terrible
And
idea.
I guess it's
I'm
kind
throwing
of,
that
that's
out there
what's
too,
prompted
but
in my
just
mind is
an
I
idea.
wonder if there's some articles or something where that's been tried and been done, and what were the results? I've honestly never done any research or looked into it, so I don't know.
I know there's some states in the Midwest that do that. So,
I also have to say too,
will
like I
second
know
that.
at Flagview, obviously they have like different teachers for different things at Flagview. But they also, based on their MAP scores, I remember now that we brought it up, they were pulling kids out based on their MAP scores and putting them into different groups for math to make sure that they were pushing them wherever they needed to be. So the kids that were accelerating in math or doing really well, they were pushing them even harder. And anyway, I love that. I love where it's like growth mindset for everyone. You're not forgetting about one kid because he's way ahead of the game, or letting a kid fall through the cracks because he's way behind. So
So I'll second what Teresa said. So when we were in Davenport, Iowa, that's where where my children were for elementary, and they did that where they, honestly, I don't think there was a topic. If the school in a grade needed an overlap like that, they did, I don't know, special class, or a math class, right? And so they did that. There were other programs too that involved more parent involvement too, but they did do that. That's when you said that, I was like, my kids did that. When we did that, when there was like for math and for even language, and some of the other topics too. But yeah, I remember them doing that. That's fantastic, actually. So yeah, I would second or third or fourth agree to look into it.
I would agree, whether it's a pilot school or however we want to do this. I know it's bold. I know that it's also going to take time. We can't just say, okay, let's do it for a year. Oh, didn't work, cancel it. But yeah, I think that would be interesting to see and see if we can get that data from it. So yeah, great idea. Thank you. Anything else for Mr. Smith before he walks back and forth one more time?
Run.
Yeah, quick run.
Run away. Oh.
All righty. We'll go ahead and move then to 3.01, which is our consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well. Motion passes. Mr. Anderson, 4.01, the superintendent's report is all yours.
Cool. All right. Let's see. Let me figure out this dongle thing. Am I doing this right? I'm succeeding so hard right now. All right, well, I'm not sure what I'm doing, but maybe Charles, I don't know if you're.
Did you turn it on and turn it off
Help
again?
me. Oh, hold on. Here we go. Maybe I just had to invoke the name of Charles. I mean, I'm in charge. Says extended desktop, is that correct? Well, what I'm gonna do is stop playing with this and tell Charles to come figure it out for me. Come on in, Charles, fix it, please. And I got other things to talk about while he does that. Okay, so just give you a quick update on some things that have been going on. It's been, we've had a little bit has happened in the last 2 weeks. And I'm gonna minimize how much I share because it's so much. We were excited to welcome our 54. Hey, there he is. Hooray for Charles. I wanna make this go up there. And I pushed this and a lot of other this and nothing happened. I'll take a tutorial later. Kinda wanna watch him do it. So the RISE Academy, we had all 54 of our new teachers, new to Elko County School District, long-term subs, paras who are doing their ARL, just a bunch of different folks who are, for all intents and purposes, first-time teachers in Elko County School District. So we had 54 of them, all crammed in the high-tech center, and it was awesome. Feedback that I've heard from people is that it was a really successful RISE. Not that previous ones have been bad, but I think we're, after 19 years of doing it, we're getting better every year, and it went really well. Lots of excited faces. And when I walked in to tell them, good job, great job, you made it. I walked in and Sarah was doing a game with them and they were all wearing bug antennae on their heads and had flashing glasses and were laughing. After 4 days of being through this academy, they were smiling and having a good time. And then I ruined it by welcoming them and sending them off for the day. But it was so fun. They were doing great. And we're really excited to have those 54 folks added to our awesome staff. So welcome them. Next is, I want to give a shout out to transportation. Not that they're ever forgotten, but so Cody, Mr. Kranka and Dr. Higbee and I all went and redid. See, I don't feel bad that you've been doing it for a long time and you just barely got it. So I feel better now. Okay, I'm gonna do this so you don't keep your attention over here. We went and got our bus recertification done so we can drive buses and for when we get bored and there's nothing to do. And while we were there, I was so impressed, not only number one with how fun the training was, they were having just a great time. But they know what the heck they're doing. Like our drivers are super knowledgeable, are very enthusiastic. They love the students that they transport. Like I felt encouraged leaving there. That those are the people that our kids get to see first thing in the day and then at the end of the day when they get dropped off. Like just awesome. Huge shout out to both leadership of transportation and our route drivers that I got to go through that training with. Cody and Ken and I know our stuff, but they know their stuff better than we know our stuff as far as bus driving goes. We're capable, but we're not as good as them. They're amazing. So way to go, transportation. And I always enjoy. It's a sacrifice to leave the office for a day to go do that, but it was well worth it. So that was good. I just want to also let you know we had a wonderful threat assessment training that every administrator, central office administrator, school psychologist, SRO, nurse, social workers, counselors, were they there too? Yeah, counselors. I think I named them all. We were all there. We all got the same exact threat assessment training from a very entertaining and knowledgeable, exceptional trainer. It was really, really, it was awesome. I felt really good about the way it was presented. And actually, with the little breakouts we were doing, it was just awesome hearing the amazing solutions our people come up with and the kind of the capability that they have as they process through scenarios and that sort of thing. They're well equipped, especially when they're working together as a team. And certain people have got different strengths in different areas, but when they're working as a school team, it's impressive. And I felt really good about who we have in place. I don't need to talk about that one. Okay, today, yesterday, all of our teachers came back on contract. So we got everybody. We're all here. We're all in the building, and we're all going about the work of getting ready for the 24-25 school year. Ray kind of mentioned that math training that we had this morning, and there were other special ed case managers had a meeting. There pockets of trainings were going on everywhere, and then it all culminated with our convocation speaker today. Again, great big thank you to the Elko Federal Credit Union for sponsoring it. Sometimes people say, in tight budgets, why are we spending money on this? Well, we're not. Someone else is spending it for us, so we can still have that opportunity. And so we really thank Elko Federal Credit Union for doing that for us. The speaker's name was Dr. David Arancibia. And he's a former principal of the year in Texas and a finalist for principal of the year for the nation. And he gave a great message about leadership, leading from where you are, the impact educators can have on kids, and told his story. And it was a really not only heartwarming but just an encouraging and inspiring message. And saw people really enjoy and take a lot from that today. And so it was really good to see the Performing Arts Building packed with the staff. He also did a session for our students in the morning, and there were a couple hundred kids in thereabout, including all of our youth from the Battleborn Youth Challenge Academy. It was awesome. Everyone had a great time. So feel like it's really important to have those together times for our whole district. Something I've heard loud and clear from the moment I started working in Wells to what I'm still doing now is sometimes certain pockets of folks don't feel like they're part of the school district. They feel like they're on their own, and I have a real strong passion for combating that. And we are a district, and we work together. And those aren't Jackpot's kids. Those are my kids. Those aren't Awaihi's kids. Those are my kids. Those are all our kids, and we need to think that way. And so bringing people together kind of unites and solidifies that for us. So it's great. Loved it. All right. And then the last thing I'll do is there was I just wanted to share some 4-day data with you. Ray kind of went over some of the student achievement, and I wanted to give you some angle from the other side. If there's something else you were hoping to see, just let me know, and I'd be happy to try to put it together for you. But tried to address things that were hypotheticals about going into the to the 4-day model. What would change, kind of thing? Like, what are we trying to address? So, first, one of the main pitches for why we should go to 4-day was the it would reduce absences, et cetera. So to show data on that. So last year, that was the total number of absences. And when you average or divide that by the number of school days in a year, it came out to this many absences per school day on average. And so going into this year, the reduction in total absences was it was a big reduction when you divide it out over the number of school days. It comes out to be about one fewer absence per school day. So not a massive change. Pretty much the same amount of absence was being taken when you talk about each school day. This one, so yeah, not really a ton to report there. So this one, pretty good though, I think is a good change. So last year we had 2,444 total unfilled absences. So meaning a teacher would leave and we didn't have a sub to fill that job. And that averaged out to every day, 13 classrooms were going unfilled with a sub. That reduced by 3 per day. So that's good. That is something that we, was also a hypothetical was, hey, Fridays are pretty tough to find subs for. And so with the reduction of with the absence of Fridays for the most part, we had less of a hard time filling vacancies. And one thing that was also very different, which is probably a positive, is last year, and really any year prior to this year, when you look at a Monday through a Friday and how many absences on each day, you'd always see a big spike in teacher absences on a Friday. With not having Fridays and just Monday through Thursday, you don't see that massive spike on a Thursday. It pretty much just kind of stayed steady Eddie throughout the week. So that's kind of the relevant data we had to share with you on teacher absences. I don't have dollars here for you because of the crazy fluctuations that happen with diesel fuel prices. However, you can see a massive reduction in consumption of diesel fuel. A very important note on this slide is this is only relevant to our schools in Elko and Spring Creek because the other schools were already on 4-day, so they weren't transporting kids to school and from school on Fridays. So we had almost 14,000 diesel fuel only reduction in consumption from last year to this year, which is a big difference. Now, what the cost of diesel was last year compared to now, like that, we saw fluctuations of almost $3 a gallon depending on month to month. So we didn't bother trying to extrapolate those numbers for you. And also of note is this does not include this is only the bulk diesel fuel that we purchase for to refill our buses day to day. This doesn't count gas cards for our fleet that go out and about different places. So, but as you can see, this is one we anticipated would be an inevitable difference. Now, where's cost savings goes, different story. All right, now I want to talk about chronic absenteeism, and I want you to think about I challenge you to think about how this applies to the achievement data that we just looked at recently. So a little bit of good news here. So last year, we experienced 27.5% almost chronic absenteeism. And by wave reminder, chronic absenteeism means they missed more than 10% of the school days for the year. 10% or more of school. So last year, over a quarter of our kids, 27.5% of our kids missed 10% or more of school. And there were only 4 schools that had better than 20% chronic absenteeism. Going into this year, now that we're, so in 4-day, that number for the whole district has gone down by 2.25%. We still have, it's too many still, 20, but it has improved from 27.48 down to 25.21. Chronic absenteeism for the whole district. Just slow down here. 6 of our schools, so we have 2 more schools that are now under 20%, which is good. And 15 of our schools all saw improvement in their percentage. So it's getting better, which I mean, you would anticipate if the whole district goes down, more schools got better. And out of all of our schools, 9 of them had a improvement of better than 5% or 5% or more. So some good stuff there. Nope. This is the whole district. Okay. I got a yes. So yeah, unlike the gas one, we just did the fuel consumption. This one includes our previously 4-day schools as well. Now, as far as how chronic, there's a saying in education that says that asserts that attendance affects achievement, and so we wanted to look at how true that is, and so we did a side-by-side comparison. Now, this actually doesn't compare to last school year. This is just an analysis of students who are chronically absent versus students who are not, and how well they achieved academically according to the SBAC. Okay, so that is our data set. So you can see a stark difference in students. So on the left-hand side are your students who, in different grade levels, who, and this is English language arts, those who were chronically absent. I'm not going to read everything. You can look at it. Unless, do you want me to read it out loud? Or, okay.
Just a summary.
Do you want me to read it out loud, Brooke?
Do you remember? Can you read?
No, I was just thinking,
Oh, you
one
raised,
side's chronically absent kids, but they're achieving, and the other side is
No,
kids who aren't
no,
chronically
who are-
absent and are achieving.
and are achieving.
That's what I'm saying. They're both achieving, but
Correct.
one set's
Yes,
absent.
so correct. So both sides are the rates at which students achieve and separated by chronically absent versus not chronically absent. And I guess the pattern I want to point out is, and this shouldn't be like a major surprise, but you have a better rate of achievement when you are not chronically absent than the rate of achievement when you are chronically absent. Or in other words, when you go to school, better than 90% of the time, you have a greater chance of achievement than if you don't go to school more than 90% of the time. To make sure I said that right.
Well, it's interesting that they're
A lot of
both
negatives.
almost exactly a 13-point increase.
Yep, and you're going to see you're going to see something interesting on the next one too. And there's definitely a pattern. So you're right. It is almost a 13% increase. So when it comes to math, and granted, we've already talked about the achievement numbers. So none of these numbers are exactly where we want them to be anyway. So that's a different conversation. However, instead of what I want to focus on is you asked, what are we doing about it, right? And so there are things we can impact, hopefully. And one of those things we try to impact is how do we get our kids in school, and how do we, if we can impact chronic absenteeism in some way, it'll therefore also impact our achievement, right? So this is one area we're looking at. When it comes to math, you see basically a doubling of the percentage when students are chronically absent and when they're not. So share this with you because, well, you asked, what can you do? If you feel like there's some way you can impact stakeholders and encourage them to have their students at school. I mean, it's hard sometimes because in the end, you're a parent, that's your kid, you do what you want with them, right? Like you can't tell people what to do and how to parent. But it's also hard sometimes when I see the nonchalance with which people are just like, oh, you don't have to go to school today, or we're taking them with us on the trip to go see whatever sports game. They'll just miss school for a day, right? Well, when we went to 4-day, you're minimizing now the number of days available in a year. We went from 187 or 3 opportunities to attend school to 154 opportunities to attend school. And every time you miss, you're missing 25% of that week of instruction. And so it's tempting and it's easy to say, well, it's just one day, right? But you can see here the difference. And I would be interested to know, we could really dive down into it, I suppose, and say, well, what about the kids that were, between 7% of their school missed and 15%? Like, is there a bubble there, right? We could really dig down to it, but the objective is to give you a pattern. And so chronic absenteeism is getting better. And I assert along with this data that the better it gets, the more likely our students will be to be proficient. So
I have a request. You know, I love my requests.
yeah, you're the best.
Thank you. I know. Can
Go on.
So can you put this data on a sheet? And I get these, we've gotten it before with, if my daughter's absent too much and you give like, here's this, and I look at it and I go, great. Can we put some of this data on there? Like, this is actual data we have. I don't know, maybe someone will do the same thing with it. This is numbers and we'll just, but.
This is the type of thing, to your point, this is the type of thing, this would be a great handout and conversation with parents at an open house or at a parent night or at, for an adult when you're talking with with them about their students' attendance. Like, these are, whether it's in a group conversation or an individual conversation with the parents, like.
But you could even do this, like, you could do this in like the text messages. I get random text messages
sure.
and stuff, and just at the end of it, fun fact, did you know that, if you fall below 90% attendance rate, you lose, you decrease your success by half. I mean, that's not an understatement with this, and you have the data to prove it now too. So it's not even like we're trying to be you're not overstating anything.
Like a public information campaign.
I'm just saying, if other places are doing it, why don't we,
You have a great communication specialist.
Yeah. So it might be something where we get some of this together and put it and hand it out. And then, there's specifics like with attendance, give the statistics that it shows this is actual Elko County that we have this thing with. But then if it's, just give it to some admin that, that they have people that they can throw it out to as well. Just a suggestion.
Yeah. I'm going to write your suggestion down.
Thanks. Write that down.
All right. That was the last slide of that presentation. I think if I do this, it should be it. All right. So I think that is it for that. And then, oh my gosh, Heather Steele would have eliminated me if I forgot two meetings in a row. I forgot to read some amazing things about our students being prepared for the future. So my apologies for the lengthy report, but I don't want to die. So regarding EHS's nursing assistant program, 100% of the students who chose to take the written exam required by the Nevada Board of Nursing passed their exam. 100% of the students who completed the skills portion of the exam on July 23 passed. Heather Steele.
Sorry.
Awesome
So
person.
the question was NCLEX or something like that. And that's because GVC is the top nursing program in the state because they have, I think for 7 years, they were 100%. And then a couple of years ago, they dropped one student. So overall, they're 99%. So I just was going to correlate that's
very well could
pretty darn good there for our healthcare. But
what's on the paper? I don't. Yeah, sorry, I don't know the exact exam. And then we still have a few students who need to complete the skills portion, and Janelle Fredrickson, the instructor, is working with them on that. The students are working through the summer to complete requirements for becoming a certified nursing assistant in Nevada, and which will qualify them to be able to work as a CNA. Let's see, what else? Thanks to the ECSD Health Services Department, including Bobby Shanks, you all know Bobby, and her staff, the Highland Manor and NRH, Nevada Board of Nursing, and Great Basin College for their support in creating a successful CTE pathway. So wanted to share that one with you. It's really great. Preparing students for the future. Next, different programs. 12 staff members from ECSD attended the Nevada Association of Career and Technical Education Conference last week. Several of our programs received recognition for programs of distinction, and those programs earning distinction were as follows. WELS, agricultural welding, power, and structure systems taught by Mr. Ryan Kindle. That was recognized for distinction. Plant Systems by Mr. Don Norda, Animal Systems by Mr. Don Norda, and Business Management by Mrs. Danielle Runyon. So congratulations to all of them. And then in Spring Creek High School, Agricultural Welding, Power, and Structure Systems by Mr. Aaron Albisu. Plant Systems and Animal Systems by Ty Smith. And Medical Assisting by Brenna Merrill. So all of those programs are in distinction. They all got beautiful plaques that are going to be hung on the wall in their various buildings. Once the CTE building at Spring Creek is done, those will be proudly displayed there. And then Heather wanted to mention too that she gave a presentation at the National School to Work Conference in Nashville about our partnership with Kinross to bring work-based learning and mining to the classroom. And our just highlighting all of that. And so our programs, our CTE programs are being lauded and shared with folks not only across the state, but at national conferences. So we're, again, going back to what Teresa said, it is so easy to just say, golly, look at this percentage though on this one thing. But it highlights the point that I'm really excited to get into about engaging our community in a portrait of what our schools, what matters to us in education, what we do in our schools, because different things matter to different people, but it's hard to label, let's just say Wells High School as a failing high school based on certain percentages, and then on the other hand saying, look at these kids going nationally and at a state level and just killing it and being exemplary programs. There's a disconnect there. And so it's important that we acknowledge the amazing programs and also acknowledge where we need to do work elsewhere. It's, can't just sit on your laurels on one end. You gotta put the improvement in everywhere you can, but really proud of the work we do with CTE and with our career pathways. So it was one of the things, again, I'm going to keep drawing attention to it for forever until you don't let me anymore. And that is students prepared for the future. We called out specifically creating advanced CTE pathways for our students. Like that was a commitment, right? And we are following through on that commitment and it's bearing fruits and we ought to be proud of that and continue to grow that. So anyway, I don't have to worry about Sarah hurting me anymore, and I think that is now everything.
Comments or questions for our superintendent? All righty then, moving on to 5.01. Items from our board members. Go ahead, Mr. Durham.
Yeah, I got a couple things. I'll be meeting with the Debt Management Commission this Friday for their yearly regular meeting. There's a lot of material to go through. But it's actually kind of interesting. I did forward that agenda to you, Matt, and if anybody else would like that, I can send that in to look at, or I'm sure it's available publicly, but it lists all the agencies throughout the county and what their debt service, what their philosophy, all kinds of, it was a good, I intended to spend 30 minutes on it and it ended up being 3-4 hours. So looking forward to that. I wanted to thank everybody for your work on those NASB awards. It was great to read those. I hadn't seen any of them until that message come out, and just seeing the night, man, we got a good team here. I just leave it at that. We got a really good team. So that was nice to see. And regarding NASB, don't forget we get the NASB and local training starting early on Friday, September 6th. And going throughout the day, and we are going to be hosting. So keep in mind, we'll have folks around, and if there's any cool activities or anything like that, it's extracurricular. Otherwise, I know there's dinner at the Star there on the 6th, or maybe that's the 7th. I don't know. I have to look. But anyway, just looking forward to that and just wanted to make sure, I'm sure everybody's aware of that. So that's all I have.
Who's next? Brooke?
No.
No? Miss Susan?
I would just like to say welcome back to everyone and welcome back next week to students. And thanks for bringing, what do they call him? Dr. A? Is that what they call him?
Yeah, Dr. A.
For bringing him in. It was very enjoyable. And thank you for your presentation. Appreciate it.
2 quick things, I guess 3 quick things. Yes, thank you for that, Susan. Welcome back to our staff and teachers, students, et cetera. And looking forward to a good year. We received an email today that I just wanted to update the board on. The Nevada Classical Academy, Elko, is going before the State Public Charter School Authority on the 23rd, which I believe is this Friday. We received another email that said there was an update. I don't really know what kind of update it was, just because it doesn't look like the numbers changed that much from what the Classical Academy had submitted, but wanted to make sure that the board was aware of that. We did get our response that we had worked on submitted, so I appreciate CJ and the staff and our fellow board members for getting that worked out. So thank you, ladies, for our help with that.
Matt,
Yes,
just
ma'am.
on that topic, just so you know, all of that information is online, including the feedback. They already have the feedback on their application of did it meet, did it not meet, along with our letter and stuff. So
Okay.
that's all online now.
Great, thank you. And speaking of charter schools, I'm hoping the community knows this, that the Elko Institute of Academic Achievement has moved. So there is a new school zone over by the Sheriff's Department. You might want to be aware of that. And that's going to catch a lot of people unawares. You've got like 100-foot area where it's 15 real quick, and then you go back up. So just a public announcement, PSA for our folks. Make sure you're aware of that. And whether they're our kids or not, they're kids, so please be careful. To the transportation side, thank you as well. And drivers, the buses are big in yellow. It's hard to miss. Flashing yellow lights and flashing red lights mean something. We don't want to be one of the statistics that we learned during the school with having a child fatality because you can't stand to wait for a couple of seconds for our kids to load. So I'm just going to kind of do some admonishment there, and I'll get off my soapbox. So with that, we will go to 6.01. Sorry, yeah, 6.01, approval of the accounts payable.
Move to approve the accounts payable.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Disclosures.
I'll disclose that I have a family member who works for Wellsville Electric, but I will not be abstaining.
I am also going to disclose that I have a family member that is getting a direct payment here, but I am not going to be abstaining either.
I need to disclose that I have multiple vendors listed on accounts payable and one of which would require me to abstain, so I won't be voting.
Thank you. Anything further? Any discussion on the accounts payable? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well. Motion passes. Last opportunity for input from the public. All righty, seeing none, we are adjourning at 7:59, right before 8 o'clock. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your evening.